unemployment of 31.9%, youth unemployment of 46.1%, depending on the source, GDP growth at a fast-paced neck-break speed of 1%, a Gini coefficient of 0.65. South Africa, economically, to say the least, is not doing very well. How might we turn it all around? Today, we are joined once more by Yusuf Bodiat, CASA Finance Executive, IODSA Certified Director, SAICA Top35under35 finalist for 2021, and author of The Bottom Line, a blueprint for South Africa's turnaround. We chat about the origins of his new book, The Bottom Line, and why it can spark positive conversation around the impact of a strategic finance paradigm for our country. We also chat about the way to build trust as a young professional in the workplace, how communication is the key to smoother teamwork dynamics, why simply being is insufficient, and why we have to learn how to appear as well, how confidence prevents you from asking the questions you need answers to, the double cost of poor service delivery of the government, the real role of a CFO in the C-suite, and more. I hope you enjoy. My travel is on the road to CASA. Very, 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 very fast one. I hope you are all enjoying what's already transpired within 2026 so far. I hope you enjoyed yesterday, Valentine's Day, with your BF, book flags, of course, as you know. If you have not already, please check out The Bottom Line, Yusuf's new book. It's launched now. It's all of that will be linked in the show notes. And if you have not already, check out part 1 of this conversation. With that, on to part 2. If we can now come to the book that you've written. It's called The Bottom Line, people. I don't. By this time, I think it'll probably be linked in the show notes to go and check it out. Probably Takealot is where people will find it.
Or my website,
or his website, which will be linked. If I would summarize the book, right, the underlying message that oozes out of every single page, it would be probably 3 words, and that would be integrity, execution, and trust, in that order. I'd say in that exact order, because when you act honestly, or when you are honest, when you are of integrity, interestingly, the etymology of the word integrity comes from the Latin word integer, which means whole. In maths, you have an integer, it's a whole number.
Yes.
Very interestingly. So when you are a whole human being, when you are a whole entity, one that's of substance, you execute on your word, and in so doing, you build that trust. And I feel like that's probably the pervading message throughout the book. You also wrote about this kind of mindset around small professional habits, where, and I'm actually going to quote you from this newsletter. You said, "We tend to associate professionalism with big moments, high stakes meetings, the major deadline, the strategy presentation. But the reality is far quieter. Professionalism is built in the everyday habits that rarely get attention. Replying when you said you would, honoring your commitments, preparing properly, or admitting a mistake before someone else discovers it. These actions don't attract applause or metrics, but they create something far more valuable. Trust. Where do you think this like tenet that I see in all of your writing and in a lot of your philosophy, where do you think this tenet of building trust through consistency, where do you think that came from in your life? Was there a moment? Was there a company, a boss, maybe your family?
I wouldn't say there was a moment or a person. I think it's been building up over time. And maybe if I can explain it. If you when you work with someone for the first time, you're not too sure as to what their capabilities or competence is. And once you get to the end of that project, you'd know, okay, has this person delivered with me or not? Right? And that either gives the person a tick or a cross next to their name. If the person doesn't deliver, you don't trust them to work with the next time. Or you may want to understand why they didn't deliver and then give them a second chance the next time. Whereas if the person delivers and outperforms, you're more than willing to work with that person in the future. Now let's fast forward that. Let's say you're working with a high performer over and over and over and over. It gets to a point where you ask the person, and let's use the example where the person is reporting to you. You ask the person to do something for you. Without even doing anything else, you know that that work is going to be done at the quality you expected. It's going to be done before the deadline. And the person is going to do such a good job that you are going to look good because of it, because you are managing a superstar, but also you are happy that that person can take the lead in the presentation or the discussion, and you are trusting that it passes the test, whatever the test is. Right? So there's a lot of, it comes down to the credibility, trust, stuff like that. So it builds up over time, but you need to work with someone for a prolonged period of time before that trust is there. And look at the other example. If a person doesn't deliver the first time, you may give them a chance the second time. But it gets to a point where, and you'll see once you start working in 2026, there are some people who you just don't want to work with because they've always under-delivered or disappointed or not given you what you expected from it. So it's something that's continuously being built up, slowly over time.
And I think it's such an important, even if you can walk into the workplace and kind of internalize that and see not the week or like see, I think especially young people, we get very short-minded, but see the entire year ahead of you and say, what do I need to do to be a trustworthy person at the end? Like that will contextualize all the work.
Yep.
What can I, in fact, it even goes into this whole thing of long term. What can I do in order to be associated with value?
So this is something that pops up in personal life, professional life, and whether I'm working at my day job or as a non-exec or non-profit work or whatever it is, or just you and I sitting here today, right? And it's something that human beings generally are all bad at. I'm bad at it, but it's the one skill that all of us, if it was better, the world would be so much easier to deal with. And it's communication.
Sure.
Right. And I say that because if you go back to what you mentioned in my post, it's if someone sends me an email and wants something, do I say I'll get it back to you by today and then commit to it? Or do I just assume the person knows that I'm going to send it back to them by today and send it at like midnight? And that's how it works in the real world, right? So it's the communication around it. Or I made a mistake in something. Do I communicate to my boss and say, actually, I screwed up? Or do I just hope that the problem goes away? And I've got real life experiences where I worked on either way, like either communicate or not communicate. Sure. And I learned my lesson many times where under communication was so bad.
Sure.
Right. So I think for me, we speak about integrity and execution and trust, like you said, but those building that trust factor with someone comes down to the communication. Whereas it gets to a point where, let's use an example where you've got the high performer. Because you've been communicating so well, or the person has delivered, you actually don't need to communicate that much afterwards. Whereas give the person a task or work on a project and you know it's going to be done because of the past experiences. But to build up to that, you also need the communication to be crystal clear. Yeah. Because things happen. I mean, deadlines are not always met. Deadlines sometimes get shifted out. But what's better? Telling a person a week before the deadline to say, guys, we're struggling, we need a few days extra, or on the morning of the deadline saying, actually, we need a few days extra. What sits better?
Oh, that's big. It gets into this idea that I've thought about. Maybe this links more to. In fact, it definitely links to the trust point, but maybe more branding. To simply be is insufficient. We have to learn how to appear as well. And that comes with the communication. So, in fact, you've painted quite a good picture. Let's say there is a specific deliverable that is required from your manager. There's this scenario where they ask you, you say nothing, and then you deliver it that day. Then there's this other scenario where they ask you, you say, thank you, we'll have it delivered by the end of the day, and then you deliver it that day. It's crazy how, by order of magnitudes more, that second option is the thing that builds trust.
I would agree with you because you've responded firstly and you've committed to something and you've met your commitment. Whereas the first one is the manager could assume that you just had spare time and did it, and it's you didn't commit to giving it that day. Had you given it that day or the day after, the manager wouldn't have known what your commitment is because you didn't commit to anything in the first place. I like the second option more.
The story, I think that's what I'm trying to also show with the podcast is the story that you paint is oftentimes the biggest impact in your career. So that's why, and I even wrote a little bit of this funny little kind of image. That's why, many people become hidden gems in the workplace, become these hidden gems because they just struggle to articulate the fact that they have done the work. They struggle to do things like communicate, I'll do it here, and then they do it there. They struggle to pick up their hand at that right moment to avail themselves. And then you see these not so hidden silver gems climbing, silver pieces climbing up the corporate ladder because you just struggle to communicate.
And it's linked back to confidence, I think. So the example, I know I spoke about communication as speaking about deadlines, but picking up your hand is a form of communication.
It is. Yeah.
And not picking up your hand is because there could be many reasons, but for me, the core part is the confidence behind it. Sure. Whereas all of us are so scared to speak up or ask the question, where everyone in the room is still thinking the same question like us. Yeah. I mean, whether it's at school or university or in the workplace. Yeah. It's a fascinating one where we need to build that confidence. And it's easier said than done. I mean, it depends on the setting. It depends who else is in the room. How confident are you that it sounds like a clever question? And how confident are you that the person is going to give you the answer that you're hoping that they're going to give as well?
Sure. There's a lot about it. And the confidence thing, I think that's another conversation we have to delve into on the pod. On your book, you mentioned this very interesting idea that I wanna take out of there. Just a few things for people to have some I guess pre-reading, some little nuggets. You mentioned this idea of the double cost of poor service delivery of the government. But basically, can you first actually explain the whole book? Yeah. And then get into this idea of this double cost, which I see from my reading is more of a triple cost even in your writing, in that yes, there's the cost to the taxpayer paying tax, but then there's also the cost of private expenditure. But then there's that third cost of trust. Can you explain what the whole idea of the bottom line is, and then zero in on that idea?
Okay, so I'll explain why the book was written in the first place. So in February 2025, the Minister of Finance was meant to deliver the budget speech, as they do always. And I think over the past 10 years, it's always been done in February.
Sure.
The difference in 2025 was that we have the Government of National Unity, the GNU.
Yeah.
And when our minister was meant to deliver the budget speech, which wasn't delivered on that day, it was postponed.
In April, till April.
Yeah. The key thing that popped out from there was that the VAT was going to increase by 2%, and people were fighting and complaining about that. And at that time, I actually wrote a short article. Sure. If the VAT rate increases by 2%, what's it going to do? And the answer was the poor people are going to suffer the most from that, right? But that started sparking a thought in my mind, like, are we so narrow-minded that we can fix a national budget just by fixing or increasing the VAT rate? And the focus for those few weeks was just VAT is going to increase by 2%. Eventually what happened is when the budget speech was presented, I think VAT was going to be increased by 1%, staggered over 2 years, like 0.5% now, 0.5% later. It didn't happen. All of that got thrown out completely. So VAT is still where it is. But for me, all the noise around that said that the budget speech is a long event. There's this whole glamour event beforehand. People are speaking about it, but it's so, maybe narrow-minded is not the right word, but so focused on a few key things to say, if we increase the VAT rate and if we increase social grants, we are going to fix the country. And that's a very layman's way of looking at it. Right. And I said to myself, okay, so why are they not looking at this country as a company? And we've heard the term SA Inc., right, with a credit rating and debt and all of those things. And I then wrote another article that was published early May, and it spoke about, or I spoke about, the title was a bit blunt, to say South Africa needs a CFO more than a finance minister. And the idea behind that was treat the country as a company and look at it as a company in distress. Look at the balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, strategic objectives, etc., etc. And don't look at just increasing the VAT rate or looking at one thing. Look at a few different, look at the whole ecosystem and make them work together to fix this country that's, falling apart. Right. And that was an article I published and it came out in early May. And I'm going to go through a few steps quickly. And what had happened then is I was traveling at the time and it was a very, very, very long flight. Sure. And when you sit on long flights, whether there's a movie or you're sleeping, there's a lot of time to think because you just, and it's, I don't know if you've ever heard brown noise or black noise on your phone or on, there's different like white noise, pink noise, brown noise. Brown noise to me sounds like a plane. And I actually focus quite nice with brown noise. When I'm sitting at home, I put brown noise on and it's the sound of the airplane. And I just got to think and I thought to myself, this article was actually quite good. I'm happy about it, but it doesn't do it justice. It doesn't even scrape the surface. It doesn't even scratch the surface. And that's the first thing that happened. In that week, 2 people spoke to me, just social conversation. Then both of them said, Yusuf, when's your book coming out? And not the book about this topic, just when's the book? Because I've been very active on social media from the beginning of 2025. And that sparked the thought to say, actually, you know what? This is a topic that has been bugging me for so long. Like, we've got a country that has so much potential. We have the smartest people in the world living in this country. Literally. Right? People are so motivated to work and do good things, but things are falling apart and things don't work. So it was a side project. Weekends, late nights, just to see if I could do this. And that article actually worked out into quite a decent 40,000 word book by the end. But that started in May. To answer your question directly, we speak about the double cost of poor service delivery, right? There's many ways to unpack it. And if I can use an example, let's say you're driving down the road and you hit a pothole. Firstly, there shouldn't be a pothole.
There should.
Right. It's like playing Mario Kart. You're avoiding potholes all over the place, right? So we think that the cost of the pothole is only going to cost my insurance company the buckled tire or the bumper or whatever it is. But it's not that. It's the fact that I need to take time out of my day to deal with that mess, right? So it's time, and time is money. Time is valuable. So I need to phone the insurance company, go to the panel beater, do all of that. You can't really quantify it unless you have a charge-out rate, but time is money. It's then costing my insurance company to fix it, if I have insurance. Right. If you don't have insurance, it's your cost to burden. My premiums then may go up. And I'm not the only person who's hitting potholes. Right. Everybody's doing it. So the whole country, people are damaging their cars because of potholes. And potholes is one of many examples. Right. And what happens then? I have to drive more carefully in the future, or I just don't want to drive again. But that's beside the point. It's the fact that that pothole that should have been fixed with the tax money that many South Africans are contributing.
Before that, you paid tax.
We're paying tax. It should have been fixed, right? And so it's the fact that insurance companies need to pay for it, but my premiums are becoming more expensive, and it's the time and effort behind that. But now also, I know for a fact that if I hit a pothole, it's my cost to take on in the future. I mean, we've got different companies fixing up potholes and things in the country. It's not their job to be doing that. So corporates are investing their money in order to fix things that the government should be looking after. And the final point behind it, it's not like there's no money available to fix the potholes, right? And it's people are paying taxes. The fiscus is generating income from taxpayers, whether it be individuals or corporates or indirect taxes or. But the money is being wasted in other ways.
Yeah.
Whereas if the money was being spent properly, I wouldn't hit the pothole. So I wouldn't have to take time out of my day, which is multiple days of time, not just one day.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have to bug my insurance company to pay for something that they shouldn't have paid for in the first place.
That idea is so big.
And if I can maybe go one step further,
Yes.
I mean, it works maybe in the cities rather than the informal places, but people should be installing solar panels to save the environment, not because ESCOM is not delivering.
Yeah.
People should be getting boreholes to get natural water from the ground, not because our water infrastructure is falling apart, right? People should not be getting private security companies patrolling their areas because our police system should be looking after us. We should feel safe. And those are just 3 examples. I mean, we can write a whole... I've written a book on it, basically.
You've written a whole chapter on that. Or not chapter, but...
Yeah, and look, section. I think the main point of that is the indirect cost is so difficult to quantify because you can look at your bank statement and the rands and cents, but what about the time? Apart from that, what about the psychological impact?
Yeah.
Bumping your car is, people take pride in their assets that they have or the valuables that they have or the possessions. And damaging it just kind of gets you upset and moody, and it leads on to other frustrations after that. So look, the book was written not with the intention to complain. Right. It is structured in a very specific way to unpack the country or the SA Inc. balance sheet, income statement, cash flow. We then go into what I call the 5 CFO levers. And we can get into that a bit later. But it looks at different ways in which we can fix or improve things in the country. All of that is underpinned by integrity. Because if we don't have integrity or let's say trust, credibility, all of that, nothing is going to work. But there's a lot of forward-looking statements. So I've looked at case studies, different countries, different SOEs. I've looked at SOEs that work and don't work.
And by the way, this thing it's incredibly deeply researched.
So, and we were speaking earlier. I think there's 48 references I've cited in the book. A lot of research went into it. I also was quite careful not to make it an accounting textbook with accounting jargon. Yes, there is a term now and then that I have to put in there to explain a concept, but then I'll put a footnote or a side note to explain what I'm trying to achieve, because the book is not meant for accountants or finance professionals. It's meant for everyone. But it's not a book to complain or vent. Yes, there is parts there where I am speaking about problems, but there are many forward-looking statements. And at the end, I actually come up with I think it's 7 priorities that the government could or should focus on to fix things. So it's a book to give hope, to spark thought and ideas and conversation, but also it's very practical in that we can actually fix this if we just focus on certain objectives in a strategic, structured way. I think there's ways in which we don't have to worry about the potholes or the load shedding or the water outages or anything else that we've been speaking about.
And then another thing, interestingly, I must concur. It's really it's a very positive book. It's actually a very positive book because it's saying, guys, this is what we could do. This is what we could do. And to turn to a little bit of one of those key messages in the book is, so from thinking of the kind of, you could call it the National Treasury, the Department of Finance, etc. If we turn that into SA Inc. and we turn that into the finance department of the company and we have a CFO's hat, right? We wear a CFO's hat. A lot of the issues are just a function of being less, or rather focusing on performance as opposed to ideology. Right, and this was the sort of big gap that I kind of felt when I was reading the book. In that, isn't politics political? Like, I kind of appreciate that as a CFO, and in fact, this is something you also mentioned. As a CFO, it's all performance, but primarily you also need the political backing of your board, of your CEO, and that's why that CEO is under so much pressure, because he's dealing with that political side. How do we bridge that gap? Obviously, that's not the focus of your book.
Yeah, but it's an important part, because if we can't bridge the gap, what's the point of the book in the first place? So to just a few things up front is, I think the misconception that people have with a CFO is the CFO is a person who presents the results and the person who keeps the accounting records, which is not the case. That's the job of the finance team. The CFO is supposed to be a strategic partner to the CEO. Whereas, yes, you're presenting results for the year that has passed and telling the story of what happened or didn't happen, but the CFO's role is actually supposed to be forward-thinking, strategic, and looking at what you can do with what you have to make things better, right? And whether it be a company to increase the share price or a company in distress to get it out of distress, because I believe South Africa Inc. is a company in distress. It's being having a strategic mindset, not just people assume we are bean counters, which we are not. That's a small part of the job, right? So just to go into a few parts. So it's looking at SA Inc. or South Africa as a company.
Yes.
We then have the president as the CEO. We then have the finance minister as the CFO. And all of us, all people living in South Africa and all investors are stakeholders. So all of us have a part to play in that as well, whether it be big or small, right? I think for me, it comes down to the whole mindset as to what do we want for this country? Do we want things to just go on as normal and wait for the next voting cycle to happen and see who's going to be in power? And I say that because the vision has to be long-term, not short-term. And I unpack it in the book to say that maybe the problem is when someone is appointed in a ministerial position, it's a short-term job, which is until the next president gets elected. And the mindset is, okay, what do I do over the next 3 to 5 years to get my salary or to get my benefits? Not thinking that this ship is so big to turn and to fix. It's going to take 20 years to fix some of the problems that we have. It's not short-term thing. So it's the mindset behind it to say, what's the best for the country, not what's best for me. Right? And I don't think anything in the book is going to fix it, but it will hopefully give people an idea that some of the problems we have could be changed or improved in the short term, but a lot of them take a long time to fix. So for example, and I mean, I'll just go into one of them in my priorities that we could focus on. One is youth unemployment.
Sure.
Right. And it speaks about early childhood development. If we find a child who's born today, by the time they finish matric is 18 years from now. So whoever is making decisions now needs to think about the next 20 years or 25 years once that child is out of university or whatever may be. So it's the long-term thinking that needs to come in there. Like I said, it's a very good question. It doesn't get answered in the book directly, but I hope that the book gives ideas as to that all of this is long-term strategic thinking, but all of it is for the better of the country, not for any one individual or group of people also.
Yeah, man. I think the book, it already poses such a fundamental mind shift. Also on, like you mentioned, like turning from a mindset of in government, the funds have been dispersed, to now like, okay, have the funds actually yielded any impacts? Like, is there any positive outcome from these funds having been dispersed?
But also, should the funds have been dispersed in the first place? Is spending tens of millions of rands on a soccer stadium that's never going to be used worth our effort, whereas a hospital or a school may need the money more immediately? And those are things where you need that strategic mindset to think, okay, what is this going to achieve over the next 10 or 15 or 20 years? Yes, I firmly believe that we need sport and soccer stadiums and all of that in the country. But if we're trying to figure out where to spend the money and there's only a limited supply, which there always is a limited supply, where's the money most impactful in the short term? And where do the people need it the most?
CFO stuff.
CFO mindset.
CFO stuff. Lastly, to close us off, I just wanted to actually talk about this part in your book, or rather this whole pledge, the Smart Start pledge. I think it's a really great way to, even if you're an aspiring writer, author out there, to position your books to actually make sure that you're giving back while you're creating your influence. Yeah,
so maybe I can just tell you what Smart Start does and who they are. So I was fortunate enough when I worked at FEM, we partnered with Smart Start.
Sure.
So Smart Start is an organization that focuses on early childhood development. So babies, basically, looking after them. And look, in the book, there's a page on them, website information, etc., etc. for me, because I speak about the 7 priorities at the end of the book, and the first one being fixing unemployment, which is underpinned by youth education, it made sense to me to partner with a nonprofit in the ECD, early childhood development space. And Smart Start is close to my heart because I spent a lot of time at their offices working with them on various different projects, right? The second part is I'm in a position of privilege where I'm able to write a book. And I feel that if I'm able to write a book and sell it to people, I should contribute something back in some way. So the commitment is for every book that I sell, I'll donate 10 Rand to Smart Start. And I'll get into why the 10 Rand is actually meaningful because it sounds like a small number. And if I sell bulk orders, I can scale it up quite easily. And I've partnered with Smart Start quite strategically. The purpose of the 10 Rand is not to generate millions of Rands for Smart Start. I mean, I'll need to sell 1 million copies of the book to give Smart Start 10 million Rand worth of revenue. Sure. The purpose is to make people aware of what they do. So for me is, even if one person buys the book and notices what Smart Start does, goes onto their website, engages with them, and that could be their next big funder. It's more just creating the awareness for Smart Start. And then for me, in my little world, is actually I'm in a space where I'm able to contribute a small amount to them as well. But I think, when people buy the book, please find out more about them. It's a really good organization with very good purpose.
Early childhood development, man. Like that for me is, it's like, imagine, like, let's not even talk about like postal code. Let's not talk about the kind of economic background one was from. Let's just talk about, like, were you fed well? Were you given the education did you get the education to learn how to read when you were 1, 2, 3? Like, did you even get that? Imagine at 2 just being so disadvantaged in that way, to that extent. I think Smart Start is an incredible organization. And just to sort of think about, even, I think, if you are an aspiring creator of something valuable, thinking even in the design phase, how am I going to give back? It's an interesting kind of way to think. But there was another company that I saw in this one show that was basically, they were giving, I think, like 5% of top line.
Wow. Okay.
To their, and the whole company was made for that purpose. Actually, the mission on the side, the foundation that they run, which does like impact projects throughout the world, 5% of top line.
That's huge.
Is going to that. And thinking about even building your company, if you want to be like a big CA in the future, if you want to start a business, start something big, huge, think about that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, how much of it do I want to create that impact?
And I think, look, it's easy to say companies need to contribute to CSI and all of that because they're getting points or whatever it is. But I think there's a more deeper meaning to that. We need to contribute to society. It's the right thing to do. And I'm going to steal a quote from a friend of mine. So Hiten Keshav from the Unconventional CA.
Had him on, yeah.
He actually launched the Unconventional Hearts Foundation.
Sure.
Was it last week or the week before?
Sure.
And in his address when he was launching it, I'm going to mess up this quote, but I'm going to try as best as I can. He said something to the effect of that it's our responsibility. It's not a privilege to contribute. It's our responsibility to actually help others.
I think you said it quite right. It's not a privilege to give. It's a responsibility.
It's a responsibility. And whether it's 10 Rand per book or 5% of top line, the fact that you are actually doing something, creating that habit. We spoke earlier about the small, consistent habits. 10 Rand now could be 100 Rand in the future, could be a big donation, an endowment or some sort in the future after that.
Because of awareness, even.
Awareness. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Please, guys, also think about giving. Think about that habit. I love that. If you could go back to first year, second year, maybe even high school, Yusuf, what would you tell him?
I love the question, but I hate it also. No, so I think for me, it's don't be so impatient. So I'm a very impatient person. We want instant gratification. I want it now. I want it
Results.
now. I want to see it now. I
Yeah,
want to see the
yeah,
results now. It's
yeah.
don't be so impatient. Everything has its own time and place for you. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, man. I think everything has its time and place. I know you won't listen to it.
I know you won't listen to it now, but it makes sense in the future.
Yeah, it'll make sense. At least with advice, when you hear it and then in 5 years when you like fall on your face because you didn't listen to it, it's like, fine. There's some sort of reconciling of the advice and you did learn. I think wisdom is always interesting to see before you experience. So it makes the lesson even more entrenched. But guys, if you've not already, please follow this. Oh my gosh, this is so incredible. Check out Yusuf's website in the show notes. Check out his book, the Bottom Line. It should be out by the time this comes out. But I hope it does not end, but that it begins in CASA. Yusuf, thank you, man.
Thank you once again.